Hey, greetings, traders. Happy Tuesday. We're almost at the end of the month. Yay, end of the quarter, actually, end of the second half. And you have come into Macro to Micro Power Hour, where I'm going to be joined by Jonathan Gibbons, founder of VigTech.io. And we're going to talk market structure and option flow, macro to micro version. What's next up, Momo land, since we've been having a lot of single stock option gamma flow helping the Momo traders out there, of which I am one, as well as investment, and helping to guide clients through this kind of lazy market. So let's get Jonathan in the room, and we'll do a little disclaimer at the beginning and say that when this is done, I will be hosting the website, on my YouTube channel, as well as it's a podcast. So this is an interview, and we will feature it on LaDucTrading YouTube channel, as well as your usual suspects for listening enjoyment, which would be podcast version, Audible, Apple, Spotify, and such. So let's do that housekeeping out of the way and then kind of get into it. So again, Samantha LaDuc, founder of LaDucTrading.com, and joined by Jonathan Gibbons. Are you there?
Yeah.
Yay!
Sorry, I was running a little late.
No worries, and I'm just putting the camera on. It's Tuesday before a long weekend, and then pretty much holiday break for many. Next weekend is kind of the most popular travel year, so we're gonna skip next Tuesday and reconvene that following Tuesday, and then kind of do this every other during July and August, just to give a little break, and also host some family. So can't wait for that. How are you on this Tuesday, end of month?
I'm good. I'm busy, but I'm good.
Yeah, you've been. I love the Twitter handle options matrix, because you are having way too much fun. You've got this serious side, right? Business founder and developer and prop trading firm, and then you have this options matrix flow meme mania, which is just totally enjoyable. You're having fun.
We got a team, so they do a good job with it. It's not all me. I can't even think all that up all day. There's no way. And some of
But
the stuff they come up with is just great. I actually am on my toes all the time, like waiting like the next joke. It's good stuff.
oh, this is fun. This is good. But you have also resumed the let me just kind of put this right here real quick. For those who don't know, Jonathan pens a weekly under VigTech, and it's called The Juice, and I love it. It's basically a good look at the flow that's happening underneath the market, and some meme, I don't want to call it meme, but Momo plays that we're definitely sizing up. So I use this, for kind of like a good tools that you have, but also your perspective. So what you see, bullish, bearish, because sometimes we're absolutely aligned and other times we're not. I have my own little macro and intermarket and technical analysis going on. So I love to spy this. But then you really get into it with some of the option flow. Volatility is still just neutered, right? This is totally in the middle of the range, nothing exciting. That's my word anyway, neutered. You go over the macro stuff, but then definitely, nature is healing. I love this. What's the options market up to? The leaderboard and FANGs for sure. Not just the momentum, work from home, and all the kind of speculative stuff that started to rotate in mid-May, but then the FANG stocks really picking up, NY FANG in particular. I want you to bring up some of these scans, and we'll go over that, because, for example, you looked forward, but it's a really good way to look. Sorry, you looked back, but it's a really good way to look forward in regards to, for example, Wish stands out, and that's one on my list I'm waiting to explode. Palantir, Neo did. I mean, that was up 9.5% on that Monday. This came out on Sunday night. Again, you're looking at total volume, aggregate data. AMD, also a chase call of mine, exploded higher this week, which has been really nice. So this is confirmation for what I do in my live trading room. Rithika, who is my trading room manager for the Discord channel, she's actually way on top of this stuff because they're really trading this flow. And I just wanted to kind of make mention of this. You've got some great scans, some great aggregate data that is really large, and what's happening in the marketplace. Also, for those of us who are still diehard cyclical reflationists and long the energy trade, I like to see what's happening in some of the more mundane, dry as dirt type of sector plays as well. So anyway, I just wanted to kind of point that out. You want to highlight anything that you are seeing?
I put that stuff in there on Sunday. It's one of those things that you can kind of, if you look at the volume on that, like if you go into the weekend and you're looking at, hey, what is going to move? You can look at the volume, right, as a big play, like like you saw that NIO, and I talked about NIO, briefly, and then I talked about it yesterday, and I still got a number up to like 59, just from a market structure standpoint, as an example. So like if you're looking for like, and we've said this 100 times, and if there's no volatility, it's just rotating from what is cheap or what's perceived to be cheap, and then what is not. And if it gets expensive, then it will kind of fizzle out a little bit, but that's all like level to level. I had pointed out Futu on the thread a couple of weeks, like maybe a week or so ago, and it looked good from a standpoint of clearing the volume profile. And then the options were coming in, and it was all call sided options. So that's why I wanted to kind of talk about like Momo today, because if you look at semis and you look at the crypto and you look at the kind of the names that are active amongst the social applications, it's just a lot of social applications for trading right now, people sharing their thoughts. And it's very prone for people to share the things they like. And a lot of these names are the names that people are actually very, very commonly not understand, right? Like they like them, they trade them, and we just kind of rotating from the names that are kind of beaten down. They were all down 50, 60, 70%. And we're just rotating through that list right now, right? And so it's kind of like easy pickings to an extent, if you got the right tools. And feel like we've provided the right tools, and you just kind of surface through those tools and look for the ones that are kind of like surfacing out, right? And then it pops out, and there you go. So that's what I would say. I think the semis are at a really interesting spot. I noticed I mentioned this morning, like crypto is popping, and not necessarily the coins, but the actual companies that are interacting with it, in the stock market. And that's something that's poking the interest there, right? Like they're creeping up by the bull, I guess I would say, the interest bull. And I think that's kind of the whole gig right now, right? It's simply just using this stuff to navigate it, and you're seeing that unfold week in, week out without volatility. It's just these plays, and then honestly, like stuff like Futu, like if this stuff breaks out, there's just no ceiling. There's great stories for these things. So I'm not saying some of these things don't have great stories. Like they do have great stories, but a lot of it's mechanical. It's really mechanical by the options flows. Right?
And my intermarket, the same thing. So in fact, I was kind of going over this with clients recently, that this it's kind of a little bit technical, but I'm going to go over it anyway because I think it gives some good perspective. When it comes to intermarket relationships, this is kind of where I focus a little bit of time. And one area in particular was this oversold McClellan NASDAQ summation index that I use. I'm trying to find it because I posted it recently. And it was very oversold relative to the NASDAQ pricing, which basically is translation for either NASDAQ's going to catch down or the oversold momentum plays underneath, right? The speculative sectors, whether it be SPACs or the Bitcoin proxies, biotech, which shot up like hot fire flames on Friday because of the CRISPR drug, NTLA, that shot up 50%. So those rotations in ARC and work from home and all the stuff that had been sold off really heavily, it shows that it's coming up off the bottom. So just from an intermarket standpoint, I've got those tools, and then I look at the macro stuff, and I can see that China's doing policies to kind of tap down commodity speculation. So the reflation trade is the value, if you will, is also absolutely taking a pause to digest and distribute. So profit taking was in full view back in early May. That rotates, like you said, in lieu of volatility, money rotates from sector to sector. So we clearly saw the macro give a nod back to the oversold momentum. We saw the intermarket, at least my stuff, say, yep, we're coming up, we're bouncing off the bottom. We're extremely oversold in select plays, and it has caused NASDAQ obviously to lead, and then FANG kind of follows. It's interesting. I really like this game, but then you go into your option flow, and you can see corroborating evidence. Like it's aligning. So that's what you saw, and it was kind of interesting because you were writing up some names that we were already long or already looking for triggers. Wish has not triggered, Workhorse has not triggered, but when these puppies go, Nikola, I think it was Workhorse, one of them. When that thing went off about 4 weeks ago, it was in IV for the option flow for those who are option traders. It was in the 150, maybe 200 range. It was already showing signs of expansion, right? That gamma squeeze. It went to 1200 IV.
Yeah.
And that's not your usual, Joe. So that's how it can escalate quickly.
Yeah. I mean, what you see a lot of right now is kind of like this. I share my screen. Do you want
Yeah. Oh, I gotta do that again. Yep. Hit it.
All right, you should be able to see Snapchat. Is that right?
Oh yeah. Yep.
Okay. All right. So when and you can see it's kind of spanning in and out right now. Is that right?
Mm-hmm. Yep.
Okay. All right. So when you look at this, like a lot of this, you see this shelf right here, this volume shelf. I put a video out on YouTube to kind of talk about and it gave a few examples, and I had used Futu as an example of how we look at it, like just how we look at it on our side. And it's about a 25-minute video. So if you're ever wondering, like, what is this guy yammering about, like, volume shelf and like, money flow over zero, et cetera, like they're all just pretty basic market structure, market auction theory stuff. And when you look at this has kind of been brewing up here, and we're looking at like kind of a spot where it didn't get rejected, right? Like price came down, it didn't get rejected. And what was happening is all of these in the last 2 months from this Momo perspective have all like kind of dipped, and they all got beat down, and they were exhausted momentum and exhausted to the downside in just a cyclical way. And not everything is looking like Snapchat right here, but a lot of things are, in the sense that they're clearing these kind of volume nodes, as they're called, and where this was resistance, or it needed to chew through it, right? Are more buyers wanting this than sellers? Is this going to be rejected? And the answer to just about everything so far is more. Right? Like more, like, more, like MOAR, more, right? Like, and when you look at Neo, it was the same thing. And I talk about like the triggers that we would look for is like this break in 50 on the momentum, and then the flows going positive. And that happened about back here. And it's interesting when I looked at it, and this is Neo, right? And that's why I mentioned Neo Sunday, and then also like, Food Too I was talking about last week, and a couple other things. It's like once this happens, then everything's positive under the surface, and then you've got like options that come into play. And options can either be like icing on the cake, or it can be a dynamite stick and blow the whole thing open, or it's grinding, right? And these like started to show like that volume on the options in Neo last week was really interesting to see on Sunday, because you actually, maybe premium didn't appear, but it's very clearly in the last 7 days that Neo was really, the one accumulating a lot of volume in the call side. And so then you look at the actual momentum and you look at the flows, and it's just pretty due, right? And boom, pops, right? And you got about a 10% move this week. And there's really, when you look at this, there's nothing between this, like this 59.23. I didn't make the number up. That's just a volume node right there at 59.23, and the fair value gap that was left behind. So it'll magnet that way unless something changes, right? And you don't have any real volatility even in any of these names. So a lot of these things look very similar, and I could assign any type of macro or micro thesis to some of this stuff, that you want, but effectively, I don't think any of that matters from a liquidity standpoint, that the names are so driven by the liquidity in the market, the desire for people to participate in the market, that the auction really is driving a lot of these things right now in the market structure. So you got 50 to 60, right? I mean, it can still go $10. That doesn't mean it's going to be a straight line. Doesn't mean it's going to immediately go there. But now it's sitting on top of this volume point of control at $46 and VWAP, right, for that time period at about $45. And there's really nothing that's like sitting there waiting to chew it through. And you see the same thing when you look at like Futu, right? And Futu's just been a raging strong thing. And that's just Momo is just really like strong and growing. And so there's a lot of story to this, right, as well on the backside. But this name, doesn't that look, if you minus this area right here that we're looking at, this looks almost like identical to like that setup in Neo, where it was just being lifted and then pop, right? And you saw the same thing here. It was being lifted and then pop. And the pop comes from, the options getting so heavy that boom, it pops. So it's kind of a consistent setup. I mean, I won't say anybody can't find this yourself. It's nothing that I'm creating here or anything like that. It's just that's what you're looking for, I think, with these Momo names, and just watching them rotate. Some of these crazier ones that you've talked about that point out, like these get really kind of out of hand, right? So I think there's two different types. There's like the stuff that's just total narrative, swaggy stock sentiment, wish clove, right, where it gets this wild bid cooking, and then wild suck out cooking. And then there's the kind of steady stuff like
Yep.
And this would be another one. I don't know if you guys caught Trade Desk, but Trade Desk was totally like cooking, and you could see the names stopping on the calls, and like you see this stuff brewing. But then you can see like this is, if you look at this from a comparison standpoint, like this says huge hole at 84. Once it busted that, I mean, you saw it break over 0 here, and it breaks over 50. So about the same spot right here, and right here. It's getting ready, and then the options fly. So, it's not all the way through the volume note though. So like this may go a lot higher, right? I mean, if there's no volatility comes in this stuff, sure, it could continue on and into perpetuity, but they kind of run a course. Like Plug's another one that is sitting there. It hasn't triggered, but it's the same setup.
Yep.
Like,
oh my gosh, too funny.
Setup,
I'm
right?
still tracking Plug too for the same reason. Looks like
Same
it's gonna
setup.
go.
Yeah, same setup. So you don't know, but like I could tell you, like this should be an index that everybody tracks if you're trading, right? And then you're kind of tracking, and we're going to drop this in here. this I just call it ranked options. It's a joke, but like we're gonna drop this in everybody's platform where it's pretty much this like kind of thing we've been tracking for about 6 months. It's like pretty much where everything options traded trades, right? So like we as things get traded more options, we drop a ticker in here. So you don't have to go which ones are trading more options, right? We
Got it.
tell you which ones are trading more options, and that'll be in there in a week where it's like, and they'll have a name to it. Like, I don't know if this is what they call, but effectively you can see like, this is AMD. AMD's not on that Wall Street bets list, but AMD was on that volume list I shared,
Yep.
right? And that volume list, which you can run at any time. Anybody can run that. Like you can look at the races. All I did was look at the last 7 days, right? And you run the last 7 days on anything. You can run the last 7 days on volume, and it's running through today. And you can see these names pop in. And this is just pulling in the last 7 days of volume, and it's pulling in the last 7 days of premium. And you can look at it like whole premium, or you could look at like calls or puts for the last day or two. Like you see the names that streak into this, they're really, really big. But these individual names that you're looking at for like this stuff, it's like kind of monitoring the stuff that's the most heavily traded options. Stuff that's not heavily traded options isn't going to be as explosive as the stuff that's heavily traded options because it doesn't have the gamma effect, right? And I mean, if we said that if it didn't get down below some certain zones and the overall market this summer, that it could be just this grinding higher kind of structure, and it really is. And you look at, and what I was supposed to point out, and if you guys download our app, right, even if you don't pay for the matrix, like we give you the free kind of like top 10 for the day, like on fire calls and stuff like that, and a few other things. You can see the Wall Street bulls and Wall Street bears where the institutions are buying it, and then you also see the on fire calls. Pretty much you see like today I saw, Mara, MSTR, Riot, these things like they were yesterday and today, and they're starting, and it has nothing to do with what what is it or what it might be. Like what do you think, right? Like what potentially think, because it's all about flows when there's no volatility, and when there's no volatility, there's no market. The cycles are kind of thrown off kilter, right? And it's all about when there's no volatility, you're going to chase higher growth, right? And that can rotate. Now you see FANGs come back a little bit. Like rig was looking really strong in the option stuff too, and rig sitting at the top of the volume profile. It got rejected at a double high, but like you don't know, that could keep going, right? Like that's got a 557 hole to fill if it wants to, right? And it's sitting at the top of the volume, but there's nothing up here, right? And so it really isn't a difficult formula that we're looking at. We're just looking at some consistent things. And then, tagging levels, you guys got that kind of stuff covered in your room, your Discord room, and what you guys are doing with like, level by level. But like, this is just a general consensus, and you kind of can front run these things, looking at the scans on a day in and day out basis, like, kind of seeing what could potentially happen. Because typically these things be 24, 48 hours in front of themselves. The stuff in the intraday stuff, I don't have any time to watch all that stuff, but like the tomorrow, the following day, you can kind of see the volume levels build, and in a lot of different ways using the scan. So I don't want to be like, total pitch out here where I'm trying to get everybody to take on product, but this is the way that we're seeing it, just in general. And I don't think that changes. I had pointed out that this Chinese stock stuff, the other day, same deal. You see it broke over 50 here, which is the momentum trigger, and it's got a lot to chew through, a lot of the Chinese stuff, but it was heavy in options the other day. And it's said to be pretty consistent with that. So you can go play to play, right? And I think you do very well. And that, I don't know, that's my story, and I'm sticking to it. Momo stocks, it really, to me, it's a Momo stocks coupled with the heavily traded option stocks. Like the Momo stocks can sometimes get caught up in that sentiment vortex where they can get way out of hand and then way out of hand the other way. But these are pretty consistent moves. Like this JD thing, that's that could be pretty consistent if that got cooking. The Futu stuff, that looks like kind of longer term strong, especially if it gets cooking. Like so you can search through these names, and you see a lot of these things like Workhorse. You were talking about Workhorse is same bucket. Look how strong the underlying flows are. That nobody wants anything to do with the sell side on that. And it is, momentum's leaking higher, and you got
and
this.
it's a negative earning company with all kinds of, garbage
Look at,
surrounding it, but the
oh
phones are
yeah.
still bullish. It's still looking like it's about ready to explode.
And you should look at this shelf right here. You look at this shelf, right? Like
Yep.
it's 17, $18. And if it gets through that VWAP and you see the options get cooking, I don't know what the options were for workhorse today. We'll take a look at it.
Yeah, I said the
But
same thing. My trigger is $18.59, and this will just go whoosh.
yeah, I mean, the bulk of everything here is calls, right? Like for the most part, like not everything per se.
And
Yeah,
none of
that's not heavy. This is what I would say is like this isn't a big number. Like you look at this in comparison to like some of the premiums on a daily basis. Just keep in mind, like this is everything, right? This is
yes,
everything
yeah.
it's flowing through.
It's
But like
under the radar right now. There's
it,
no question. But when it
no
comes
question.
back, they are locusts. They descend on the field, they eat all of the
Yeah.
crop, and then they go on to the next one.
Yeah. Well, we've securitized the market. Like this is the reason I think the market grows from like more securities coming into the market to trade because there's just more people consuming more stuff and more people consuming more product from a trading standpoint, right? Leads people to find the things that they consider to be inexpensive and then drive up the price on those things and then sell them when they consider them to be expensive. So
Well, I don't know if they really know
visceral.
that their, concerted effort is a revolution, or if they're just all, signaling the same stocks, and they jump on and then they're like, "Oh, they're squirrel."
Well, yeah, I mean, that's always been the way the markets work. It's just been a little captive, right? More trapped in information, right? So like information just wasn't as readily shared or available as it is
Oh,
now, which
no
is awesome.
question. Yep.
And so it's this. I think the market's just evolving. I mean, at the end of the day, there'll inevitably be volatility at some point, and there will be cleansing of like not savvy, but just not prepared hands because they just don't understand like any type of bear action, which is really just heavy sell side action, which is always on hard volume and it blows bids out. So like this is just fascinating. This one is just such an interesting setup because you got that huge dump back there in February. And the 31 level is like a magnet, right? It's just a total magnet for this if it gets up and cooking, right?
Well, but also even your K-Webs. I mean, if you go back there today, we had a ginormous call spread come in August, 74 by 84 call spread, 150,000 contracts each leg. So, there are other bigger players, not just a lot of small retail, collectively making up for big plays when they come in, the locusts, kind of idea, or the shark feeding. But but there is definitely, and I follow this stuff not just from the option side standpoint, but this sector rotation. Okay, they've come through. The locusts have come from mini sector to mini sector to mini sector. Then it was tan and the solar. The biotech, the TAN, K-Web. So it's very, very profitable to follow sector rotation in lieu of volatility. Money just rotates from value to momentum, momentum to value, from work from home to biotech to SPACs. It's fascinating. It's a lot of fun. So this is what you are capturing for sure in the option flow, which is like I said, for me, it's a tool in the toolbox. I like to use it to confirm or deny, what I'm seeing. Like Workhorse, to me, has a great structure, not a great fundamental picture, but I'm waiting for the next round of heavy call buying because that's what happens with that particular play. And then if it doesn't come in, it's just going to sit there like a shark on the bottom of the ocean, waiting.
Yeah. I mean, as long as the flows are positive, which they are really positive, then you're talking about like it's just a matter of what's going to light the stick on fire.
And dollar's still rising a little bit, which is a headwind for the the good old commodities and value trades. But it's interesting. I've been waiting for about 4 weeks now because I've been mentioning that I was bullish QQQ into 355. It's just a fib level and it really doesn't mean anything that it's going to reject, but I'm pretty good with price levels, right? So that's my thing, right? If I'm bullish, Apple's going to 135.50 and then, level by level. So this particular one, I'm curious if it's going to tag and then kind of soften, overshoot, and then fail. But right now, these setups still are in bullish territory, and clearly small caps, the Russell, are in distribution. So the Russell and Diamonds are in distribution. SPX is just getting pulled up along for the ride as NASDAQ leads. We have the two most bullish weeks in the year, as far as July, end of month window dressing, end of quarter window dressing. First half has been really eventful. And so what do you see for second half? Now let's do some prognosticating. What do you think? More of the same, or are we going to get any
More of the same.
Okay.
Yeah, no. I mean, what's going to cause volatility, right? You've got
Complacency, higher yields, complacency only to shake you out just briefly, like the Bitcoin, right? That leveraged trade, 125% Binance brags, and then boom, it dumps 50%. So last in or first out, but the rest of the crowd is still very eager for their their clan to move higher. So I think it kind of cleanses and then it moves on up again. But right now we're definitely in the digestion period for Bitcoin.
Yeah.
Lots and lots of calls for much higher end of year, both for SPX as well as Bitcoin, led by momentum. I still see rates going higher, but not until after this kind of August Jackson Hole deal. And the dollar I still see going higher, but not extensively. So pretty much the same.
Yeah, I'd say the same. I think Stan Druckenmiller had an interview. I saw just like a couple minutes of it earlier today. I was like eating breakfast and I was like on a little video, I was watching on my phone, and he's talking about cloud kind of moving from the first inning pre-COVID to moving straight to the fourth or fifth inning because of COVID. What was going to be a maybe a decade long or 7-year, 8-year deal is like really compressed. And I saw that a lot too from the development side last year. Some stuff that we read said 3 years got pushed into one.
Yeah.
From a development perspective. So I think there's a lot of growth that is like has happened. It's not even manifested itself yet. And that price is magneting to that. It's a lot like a different time than 2017, but the price action could totally kind of look like that, where we just kind of never really feel anything heavy, like kind of corrective wise, till maybe next year or the first part of next year, something to that effect. I don't know. And analogs are really useless to me at this point because there's so much more liquidity than there's ever been. So it's like kind of take it level by level. And I just don't see anything right now that like there is a massive amount of complacency, but there's just a lot of desire for risk and the desire for growth and the chase for growth. And I think that will fuel any type of risk off. Like even if you get some risk off pockets, there's just so much desire to buy, to be in, that it's got some time to shake out. So that's my take on the second half of the year. Barring some change in the volatility complex, you're going to see higher indexes by the end of the year for sure.
So this is what I wanted to just show, which is in my Slack client workspace. Big picture, I had to show this because I thought it was fascinating. I saw this morning. This is the net number of profitable versus unprofitable companies with their secondaries or they're adding on, share offering. And you can kind of see this trajectory of up and to the right, and down and to the left. But what was interesting was, digging in a little bit more. By the way, that came from Sentiment Trader. Bloomberg saying in the past 12 months alone, SPX has risen 30. Well, I'm saying that.
Yeah.
I'm saying SPX has risen 30%. Bloomberg saying there have been 254 profitable companies issuing secondary or add-on shares, but 748 unprofitable companies doing the same thing. And then it made me go into my intermarket, which, again, like you just said, divergences don't pay. But it's still, my job to look for risk. And I'm fascinated by market structure when liquidity comes in and, volatility's neutered and stonks only go up. But the point is, this was fascinating. This is gap. SPX earnings, right? Just giving that example, right, of this huge outperformance by non-earning companies. You can see that this started really in earnest with the gap SPX crashed, COVID, still has not recovered, not even a little. We're talking about that 30%, in the past year has been outsized in SPX. This is, if all things were equal, we'd be about 2250 in SPY versus our 4300.
Yeah.
If we were to
I saw that earlier.
Yeah, if we were to do that kind of, it doesn't matter, but if we were.
This bear porn right there. You go. 2250. That's clickbait.
That's no, but I mean, I'm just showing you like things kind of correlated until recently. Now they're not even close. There's such a disturbance in the forest.
It's liquidity. There's just so much liquidity and desire for liquidity and accessibility for that liquidity to find its way into stonks, right? Or whatever ETFs and etc. So like I don't know, like if you were gonna have, you would have to have normalized price action to get to the kind of those levels, or price discovery, and there's really not any price discovery because there's just so much appetite, right? So any type of dip, appetite, right? And you can see that in the VIX, right? And you can see that in the volatility ETNs, just no appetite for risk off, and so I think it's bought quick now, but it's pockets. Right, you still have these pockets where they just go up, 150%. It's gonna retrace like 65% from that 150 spike, like, and that's what you saw earlier this year. And now these things are back again, round two. Hence the whole comment today. So it's like, the volatility never disappears. It's just mutated to these other areas right now. Overall, the whole market, though, no volatility. Whole market, no volatility. These prices, I think and the other part of my thought is the ETF structures for the one-time frame purchasing and the passive, right? Plus the share buybacks coming in this year, they're in.
Oh yeah.
Really do play into kind of just goes higher, right? Like it's these are the things that we were dealing back with 17 and then 18 and then latter 18 and then 19 and then 2020, but
this is interesting. I mean, just to kind of on the FANG and all that, where there is disturbance or divergence. So this is NY FANG. You probably know about this one as it relates to 8 kind of equally weighted FANG stocks from Twitter to Tesla included, by the way. So it's not all market cap, but this has recovered, since the February highs, and yet NYSE is just starting. It's gone straight sideways. Tons of save activity. I mean, like, this was a phenomenal save. So we're still not able to roll over in this particular sector, while in this particular index. This is definitely right up to my 355, and I have, like I said, it's a fib level. Now we have to see if there's a pause, an overshoot, some kind of confirmation of rejection, but we are there today after this beautiful, reversal up in mid-May. So this was literally when value started turning over and momentum started turning up. It has definitely played out for a good long while. But the NYSE, if I was to look underneath the surface, I would see this. So this is still the concern. We've gone sideways for months now, and underneath the surface there has been very weak breadth. Does it matter since NASDAQ is breaking out, semis are breaking out, SPY is all-time highs, diamonds and Russell are just kind of in distribution or digestion, however you want to look at it. But that still is weak under the surface, which shows me that it is very much this momentum rotation that's leading the markets higher. It's not necessarily healthy to have such a narrow focus, but whatever. That is indicative of maybe the economy isn't so strong after all. We do have some weak components. They're not playing. I mean, you can see what's happening with the reopening trades of jets and cruise lines. They have not broken out. They've actually rolled over. So
Well, we all know
it's
that the
still not
economy,
so safe. We're just playing the trades. Doesn't mean this is going to last.
I guess the favorite quote I have is Jimmy G. He's a great follow on Twitter. He's hilarious. But he's like, they're like, oh, it's not going to end well. And his comment was, I don't know what does, right? Like what ends well? Like if you think about it, like doesn't really ends well. Because it's over. So like I think this is really at the end of the day, we're really talking about market mechanics, right?
Yeah.
And driving this, and it's not health. It's so unhealthy that you show the best. Actually, when I saw that chart earlier that you had put about your earnings,
The gap.
analysis there, is that what a disparity, but how powerful is liquidity?
Yes, 100%
Right?
agree.
And so
100%.
reality is the liquidity, and the facts are the gap, right? And so what's the truth? The truth is that people, they're not even recovering, and they got the whammy of inflation, all the businesses do, and higher wages, thinner margins. Earnings will be harder to come by.
Potential regulation, higher taxes.
all the headwinds.
I laugh because otherwise, it's irony. It's just we live in this kind of virtual reality market, not just.
It's all a sim, right? It's just a sim. We just live in a sim. So like, so I think like is it? You look out into 22, and you really look at the election in 22. And then in 24, and where we're at, and it's all full steam ahead to an extent. But like when you start thinking about a macro picture, well, they're like, printed, and we printed, and you can see it. But then what, right? Like, and then what? It could be just from much higher levels, right? Like and I think that's kind of the way I look at it right now. From a step back, is I don't think any of this is like necessarily like fluid, right? To an extent, like where it would natural. Like that gap chart's the most unnatural chart. What if it continues and the earnings like turn up a little bit? Like I think probably in stuff like that, what you could see is you're going to see a pattern form that you've never seen before, potentially, where it's just flat to like kind of leaking lower, or it turns up a little bit and it kind of, okay, here we go again with it. We're going to have a new earnings cycle where it's going to be better and they're going to start performing, and they don't. They just don't, because it's there, the room's not there to perform. It just, even with creative accounting, and there's some creative accountants out there, it's going to be hard, right, to find margin when it's not there. I see businesses still can't hire anybody. Like you just here in Florida, they can't find anybody. Like that's just insane, and the wages are significantly higher than ever seen. Like it's the margins. It's like, so if you're either doing really good and the margins are super healthy, or you're just kind of skating by with the margins. That's kind of what you're seeing from an anecdotal perspective. I don't. It's just definitely not healthy.
Well, it's no comment on what is the data versus the price action. There's always going to be divergences, but it is very much a trader's market right now. It's very much a seller's market in housing, and a trader's market otherwise. So we'll play it, and we'll come back and take a look and see if there's any change. But the weight of the evidence clearly is we've had a very strong 5 weeks of NASDAQ impulse higher, Bitcoin digestion. We'll see if any big selling comes in over the summer to kind of shake up either the deflation trade, because China comes in hot and heavy on their credit tightening, which by the way has been happening, which is contributing to the weakening of that value, that rotation trade for sure. But I think it's still pausing. There's still a lot of value to be unlocked there historically. So I don't think it's going away. And we talked about that last week. You know, this monthly chart of mine that said May 31st. It's gonna come into digestion now. It's hit some really, and then the narrative of China and credit tightening and such. But yeah, it's definitely been a lot of fun, and you released your mobile app just in time and the options matrix just in time. It's been a lot of fun. Following the juice and the Twitter handle for the memes, but it also is really good flow. Like I said, I can do the technical stuff and read that sector rotation better than most, but it's so much fun to actually see the evidence build in the option flow underneath it, and to say, okay, is it ready yet? And
Yeah.
the more the sharks start to move, the more your stuff just starts to get hotter, and it's feeding time. So I definitely recommend those scans. But otherwise, you started a new game as well. Speaking of, it's all a simulation. You've got some, I don't know what they're, stock trading games or use your, navigating the app, but it's a lot of
We did that for this week because everybody, like, it's that midpoint of the year. It's just,
spice it up. You're bored.
well, we figured to have some fun and get people interacted with things, and like we have a lot of stuff coming in the summer. And this is kind of like front running into some of those things. So there'll be some cool stuff coming with that. But like this is just this stuff today, tomorrow, Thursday, the stars and stocks. That's totally that's just fun. Like people to have a little fun, mess around, like and we appreciate everybody for the growth this year and for supporting it. So it's like we had some people win today and they were like super excited, and it'd be more too, bigger pot tomorrow and bigger pot on Thursday, and then everybody goes into the holidays happy. Right?
It's real money. It's not tokens. I mean,
hopefully, like so just don't YOLO on call options the next day. That's
you should do some NFT kind of tokenization of. I think you'd get tremendous interest, and you would find out also on this, what really draws people in. They'll start. They'll start your own currency, VigTech,
Bitcoins.
Bitcoins. Oh my God, that's brilliant! I think you should do it.
I don't
know what any of that means, by the way, but I know it's hot. Okay.
Okay.
All right. Stella's not in the background giving me the hook, but we'll end early. Anything else for, I don't know, news we can use and trade on?
Yeah, no, I got nothing.
Okay.
I got absolutely nothing. Have a happy 4th, everybody.
Oh, yeah, long weekend, and we'll be gone next Tuesday, and we'll reconvene in 2 weeks.
Yeah, absolutely. Absolutely.
All right. Thank you so much. Again, this will be on my YouTube channel, LaDucTrading, as well as podcast. The interview will be uploaded, so you can find it on Apple and Spotify and usual suspects. And check out, what you can on the VigTech platform that appeals. There's action for investors and traders alike. And wish you all a great week. I'm off with my daughter. She comes home. Yay. From Europe. All right. Have a great weekend. Bye.
Take care, everybody. Bye.